Loki Season 2 first reactions have arrived. We now know the Writers Guild terms that ended the strike. James Gunn confirms some returning players for the DCU, and Apple releases Flat Top Henry Cavill on the world. All that and more on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your one-stop shop for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today we have Mr. Jay Sisson from Commute the Podcast. What's going on, Jay?
Not too much. Just happy to be here, hanging in the multiverse.
Ooh, yes sir, yes sir. And Haley Hobbs from Source Pages. What's happening, Haley?
I'm happy to be back in the multiverse with Loki this week. Woohoo!
Oh, me too, my friend. And Jay Scotty St. Clair from Animation Deliberation. What is happening, Jay Scotty?
Hey, doing just peachy over here. We've gotten one of the two strikes figured out, so the proverbial news floodgates have opened, and it's exciting to be here to discuss it all.
Right? Yeah, this week we've got a lot of things to talk about. Well, we might as well turn right into that. First impressions for Season 2 of Loki are hitting the internet, with critics hailing it as some of the best MCU content in recent years, capitalizing off the success of Season 1 and taking the characters and story to new heights. Critics have only been able to review the first 4 episodes of the series, but there is a great deal of optimism that this series delivers. Reviewers can also confirm that all 6 episodes are over 40 minutes in length. The pacing of the show is described as fast. Will that also describe how quickly we fall back into the world of the Time Variance Authority?
I think that we will if we're lovers of the MCU, like most of us on this show are. There have been some reviews that have maybe said that Kate Herron is missed. Kate was the director from the first season, but I think that regardless of a few naysayers, the fact that most of these reactions to the screenings are super positive is just everything we all wanted and needed. I still haven't seen any spoilers, so we still have really just no clue what we're getting into with Loki Season 2, and honestly, I think that's a service to it. I think that we're all kind of craving a little mystery and excitement, and I'm really looking forward to watching it this week.
Yeah, to me, this seems like the show that, and Season 1 did at least, seems like the show that it needed to exist for the service of the overall universe and the story, that it was very much driving the overall narrative forward of the story of the general MCU, which not all of the series have done, and even some of the films haven't really totally felt like they've done. And so to me, that's the biggest appeal and draw of this show, is that Season 1 did so much for the grander narrative, and then we've just gone in a lot of different directions from there. To me, I'm sort of looking to Season 2 to try to converge that a little bit again and try to get some of these things on the same page. And it seems like, at least from the reviews that I read, that it attempts to do that. So to me, that makes it exciting. But usually these reviews, you can trust them a little bit more. These are not like press screenings where people tend to skew very, very positive. Typically, people are pretty upfront about what they think when they review these first few episodes, and they put social media reactions out there. Like, if they're not crazy about it, if they're not crazy about the pacing, they'll usually tell you. And so for there to be so much just like, man, this show's awesome, it's refreshing, it's what we really needed, and I'm so looking forward to these last 2 episodes I didn't get to see, I just think it's a really, really good sign.
Yeah, Season 1 did something that I'm really impressed with, and it served as so much exposition for the multiverse while being also one of the most compelling dramas and action series that we've gotten. Like, it feels, you're saying how it's important to the universe, and it's weird because you could have had all those other shows and movies, even the ones with the multiverse, without ever explaining what a variant is, or showing the sacred timeline and showing splits and showing all this stuff. You could have had all that, but like, this show feels like almost like a rule book for the Phase 4 and 5 of the MCU and the multiverse saga, and I'm hoping it continues to do that while still being like a really compelling character story.
I'm normally not too precious when it comes to like early reviews and spoilers surrounding those, but I have been anticipating this series so much that more so than some other movies and series, I've really avoided reading any reviews whatsoever. So just the little snippets that we got in this article is all I've really been exposed to. But I think it makes sense because I think the fact that this is the first official like Disney Plus property to get a sophomore season, I think that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Yeah, we're all looking forward to it. And it's building off that first season, but it just shows how proven that first season really was, that this is the first project to get that opportunity. And the little bits that I've read, like it seems like glowing reviews right across the board. Ki-Hu Kwan's Ouroboros, his new character, seems to be a standout. And even some of the ones that aren't so glowing, like it doesn't even seem like they've lost those people that may have nitpicks. They're not completely off board. Like I think I saw some stuff saying maybe there was too much product placement when it came to McDonald's. I think the other thing was that it kind of felt like more of a TVA, the show, rather than a Loki series. But I think that kind of makes sense with the amount of world building and heavy lifting that this series in particular has to do for the future of the MCU with this, crux of the multiverse and the story thrust going forward. So I love what I'm hearing about this, and I can't wait until we get a chance to check this out in just a day or two here.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure all over the Stranded Panda Podcast Network we'll be doing things with it. I'm sure you guys are doing some over on source pages.
Yep,
some
sure.
primers and such.
Just dropped tonight, in fact.
Nice. Well, check that out. And of course, on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, we're going to be doing 2 episodes every week. We're going to be doing our instant reactions right here on Twitch, where we stream live, as well as a feedback episode every week. So I'm just really excited. This was my favorite show of the entire Phase 4. So I'm just pumped to see more. It's exciting. Up next, the details of the WGA contract have been released, and we're not going to be able to break it all down here, but here are some of the highlights. We're going to take these a section at a time, sort of a mini lightning round here. Regarding the number of writers on a television or streaming project, at least 3 writer-producers must be hired on all series. The number of writers will rise on a sliding scale. A 6-episode series must have at least 3 writers. A series with 7 to 12 episodes must include 5 writers, and a series with 13 or more episodes calls for 6 writers. These minimum staffing requirements must be enforced unless a series is billed as a single writer series from the beginning. The contract also includes a minimum time of duration for employment for writer-producers. Development rooms must exist for a minimum of 20 weeks.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say up front that none of us are lawyers, and this is an extremely complicated document.
The legal disclaimer that we're not lawyers.
Yeah, we are relying on the hard work of other people. Like we read articles from people who explain these things. So that should just be said, that we're doing the best we can to explain it. But I think looking at some of these key things, there are some big takeaways here. This was a big sticking point of the whole strike in the first place, was the cut down of writers' rooms to potentially a single person, maybe a single person and an AI. And this does give the opportunity for someone to pitch a show that's written by just them. So if Dave Filoni says, I got a show, I've written it, I've made it, and I want it to be a single writer show, he does not have to bring on 3 writers, 4 writers, or whatever to make this show. So that's an important thing to note. But if it sort of hits that middle ground where the studio can't necessarily just try to cut down the writer's room to a certain amount. It keeps the writer's room at a place where it seems like the guild is happy with. It seems like this was not necessarily a huge compromise on the guild's part, that they wanted a ton more writers. This seems to be sort of in that middle ground where they're a lot happier than maybe we thought in terms of like what they got out of this, right? That this was a win for the writer's side. But it's also important to note that this only takes effect for series that begin in December of this year, and that includes series that are in their 2nd and 3rd seasons. So other series that have already started or are ongoing, even if they haven't started writing their season 2 yet, this does not apply to them. So like think of any shows going on HBO right now or Disney Plus, any of the Marvel shows. If you want to make a season 2 of Miss Marvel, if you want to make you think about HBO, you want to make a season 2 of The Last of Us, Plus, think about all these shows. They do not have to abide by these rules. Now, I would bet that the studios will probably be like, hey, we really want you to make this show, so let's stick to the rules. But still, that's something just to keep in mind too. And overall, I think ultimately this has the potential to affect the length of seasons. You think about, we've talked, a lot of people have talked about how 6-episode series, sometimes it's been a lot of talk around Marvel specifically, but 6-episode series maybe don't really have enough room to do the whole series thing and to really explain characters and do what they're supposed to do, that they're teetering between that should be a movie or should be longer line. I think with a deal like this, you will probably see a lot more 6-episode series because it does allow a little bit extra money to stay off the books. You don't have to pay as many writers rather than saying, hey, let's make this thing. I mean, you're talking between 6 and 7 episodes. That's a whole couple writers. So as from the studio standpoint, it makes sense to be like, you want to do 7 episodes? How about you do 6 episodes? So then I don't have to pay a couple extra writers for 20 weeks at least. So I think it's just a couple things just to take away from that.
Yeah, anytime you have these imposed, I always think of these like rules like a board game designer, and I just see like the flaws in them and this kind of thing. Like I just think like, yeah, if you make a wide range like that, 7 to 12 is a wide range. And so you can imagine them being like, well, let's get our most out of our writers. So it's like seasons will just be 6 or 12.
Right.
And once they're in 13, they might as well just keep going and do an 18 episode series. It's kind of just this weird thing. Like I think 13 is a weird thing because like it's only one more writer. The 13 episodes above the 12 only calls for one more writer, so it's not that big of a deal, I guess. But like so many shows were 13 episodes for a long time, but this does put that weird like artificial stopping point at 12. It's strange. Yeah. Strange to think about the unintended consequences of these kinds of ways of thinking about things and putting stopping points like that. And I also just see that like unless it was planned to be a single writer series from the beginning as like a real big loophole, like they could just go, oh yeah, this is a single writer series, Bob's the writer, like it's just like not worrying as much about following these rules if you just claim it's a single writer series. Kind of weird.
So 13 Reasons Why came out at the right time, apparently.
Was that a single writer series?
No, just the 13 episode thing.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Sorry.
That's all good.
Okay, up next on this here story, we have on the key issue of residuals, a new formula was agreed upon. Content made for streaming that is viewed by 20% or more of subscribers in the first 90 days of release will trigger bonuses for the writers for both series and films. Foreign residuals were also increased. Residuals for previously made shows that become streaming hits were also addressed and agreed to.
Yeah, so this is a pretty big one, and I do think in terms of the, what was negotiated, it's pretty straightforward, but I don't want to diminish how big a win this actually is, because streaming services have kind of historically been notoriously dodgy about revealing their viewership analytics. Mm-hmm. It was one of the big points of this whole strike, like how do we compensate people, writers, fairly in this new landscape that streaming has kind of taken over. So I think it makes sense. I will be interested to see exactly how that shakes out with some of these series that may not be exactly like runaway hits. Like I think we know when a show is a hit, even if they don't release the viewership numbers. Like Wednesday comes to mind, and then like thinking about shows that retroactively become hits, like Suits was such a big thing on Netflix here recently. But I am curious about maybe some of the ones that are more quietly successful, like what kind of compensation that's going to look like. And I don't think this is going to solve the issue entirely. We may still see, the occasional writer post that check of like, a ridiculous like pennies on the dollar kind of check that they got from some old show. But hopefully we see less and less of that with this big win for the writer's strike, or the Writers Guild rather.
Yeah, and this also, same thing, doesn't kick off until December. So, like, Suits blowing up now, even with this new deal, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't fall into that category because it was made before this deadline. So right. I almost think, like, there's a potential for an unintended consequence. And that's, like, if you've confirmed a show, like, it's in production. That's not just if it's made. So, like, gotcha. I almost think we might see, like, a flurry of things try to go into production before December. You know what I mean? Because it's like, let's get this out there real fast. So then it doesn't necessarily have to be under this, like, new residual thing or whatever.
Right. Okay. Well, into production can mean a lot of things, too. Yeah. So
right.
I just keep thinking about all the many ways that corporate structures have been able to screw over artists forever, and like I just see like big wide holes in these like negotiations, and I'm like, oh gosh, like the thing with the 20%. We've been talking a ton about merge purge and like how like these streaming services keep getting combining and getting bigger and bigger and like consolidating. The bigger a service is, the less likely you're going to be able to get 20%. You know what I mean? Like the more shows there are to watch, the more things that are going on, the more like more subscribers there are. And also like I feel like a lot of subscribers. I mean, sometimes there's months I don't even turn on Netflix, you know what I mean? Or Hulu, or like I'll be watching one particular show and not even know what's going on over on Netflix, you know, and later I'll hear, oh, this movie was really good on Netflix, and I'll go back maybe. But like, I mean, this I feel like this is only going to apply to those shows like Wednesday, like you were saying, that like that has a huge audience and it's everywhere, and that probably hit 20%, but I'm not even sure. It's just impossible to know too, and without the clarity of them sharing their numbers, like I also don't really buy the idea that they'll tell the truth. You know what I mean? Like, how do we know 20% of subscribers access the show if they're not
we
giving
still
their numbers?
Won't know the numbers either. The way that this deal is set up is they have their own board. They send the numbers to the board, I guess, to control leaks, because there's like 5 or 6 people or something that like they're lawyers and accountants, and they calculate the residuals and then they send that out, and that's part of the guild. So the guild sends the check to you for the residuals, not the studio. So they're still not, it's not out there. I mean, it's still protected information, but they've at least let the guild in on it to a degree, I guess.
Yeah, again, I've just like come from like the music world where you hear about these music studios and music houses like putting out albums, and they sell 1 billion albums, and the band makes like 20 grand or whatever, because like the way the numbers were structured, and they're like, oh yeah, we still took a loss on that album, and like, no, you sold millions and millions of copies, but you hired your own publicity arm and your own this arm and your own that arm, and it's just they've always been able to work the numbers in a way to mess over artists. So like, yeah, I just keep seeing big holes in this, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if they got this right, or like, you know.
We don't know every single detail either. These are the sweeping headline things.
Right.
You would hope we have confidence in them that they made good decisions on behalf of themselves.
One thing we know for a fact, too, is that the Writers Guild is happy with the deal. So I think that's something that needs to be mentioned, too. Like, writers walked away being like, we won. So I think we have to consider that, too.
Yeah. And I mean, even if it's just the fact they pushed the ball forward, they still push the ball forward. It's still better than the deal they had before, so you can't really say it's bad. Okay. Policies were established to govern the use of artificial intelligence, including that AI cannot be used to write or rewrite literary material, and all use of it by writers or anyone else must be disclosed. Writers also reserve the right to assert that exploitation of writers' materials to train AI is prohibited.
Yeah, so this was a big sticking point. Obviously, we talked a lot about it, how AI was in the conversation from the very beginning, about just central to the writer's strike. And the way that this has worked out, I do think is a win for the writers because of the way it's worded. It does, the fear of writers was that they would write something, it would be paid by this hourly sort of rate to write something. They would only get one guaranteed draft. They would provide that spark of human inspiration, and then that draft would be sent off to an AI to basically rewrite and take it from there and do the bulk of the rest of the work that they would have gotten paid for after they had given the spark of inspiration. What this does is it layers it to where a writer has to be involved at every level, has to be involved at different levels of the draft, and if AI is ever brought into the conversation, it has to be disclosed. So if a writer wants to use it, they can, but they have to disclose it. If a studio hands something to a writer and says, hey, we want you to take a look at this and rewrite it, if it was written by AI, they have to disclose that. So if it's an idea that was come up with by AI, they have to disclose that. So all of that has to be disclosed at every level. So I think that's why it's being looked at as a win, because it does get that out in the open. It doesn't have to be this sort of secret behind closed doors thing that we've kind of seen happen with that. in terms of what it was talked about, at least as potentially being. Now, the stuff about using writers' material to train AI, there's still a couple of court cases that need to be decided. There's one with Sarah Silverman at the center where she sued ChatGPT essentially for using her work to train an AI to write comedy sets. And once those court cases get decided, I think we'll see a little bit more clarity on what that means. But we're really just in uncharted territory right now as far as like what is the artist's role in terms of contributing to the training of the AI. At this point, it's sort of like Pandora's box. Like if it gets ruled that you can't do that, you kind of have to undo the entire thing, because that's how it's learned up to this point, is by consuming the internet. I mean, did you see the news story that the AI can now browse the internet? Like that came out, I think it was last week. Like AI is actively browsing the internet now. So that's how it's built. That's how it functions. You'd have to undo everything from the ground level and recreate
is how it starts.
So, it's, yeah, like AI's commenting on the Twitch stream right now. It's like, I should be the only writer. Like, all these other writers are stupid. No, but ultimately, like, yeah, you've got just this thing is laced in there, but it's in a way to where I think the writers feel like they have a little bit of control over it, at least, which I guess is why it's skewed towards a positive.
Well, I think it's a temporary win for now, because you think about way like these AI models are trained, like instead of having to pour through like, the vast volumes of everything on the internet, this like prevents them from saying, hey, we want like a script that sounds like an Aaron Sorkin script, so they can't feed it like a data set of Aaron Sorkin specifically and say, hey, write like this guy. So I'm totally on board with you. It's very nuanced, and there's a lot to hash out, especially with ChatGPT, because it's been like this open source free thing that's been out there for so many years, and it's technically not for profit at this point. So I am curious to see how those court cases are going to shake out, because I almost think it's like a case of like you have to hold the individual that used the ChatGPT responsible rather than ChatGPT itself. Like,
yeah,
it's complicated. Up next here in the Writers Guild deal, the contract preserves the policy of ensuring that the vast majority of screenwriters will get a second step, meaning that they can be paid to do at least one rewrite of a draft screenplay.
This was not one of the hot button issues we talked about a lot, but as I was going through it, I found this to be really compelling, because when I read through the Variety article, which I've pulled up just so I don't misspeak, it reads a little bit like this was going to be for only original screenplays, but actually that was what the Producers Guild originally offered, was that you could do the second step, but only for wholly original screenplays, not projects derived from existing intellectual properties or reboots or remakes. And in this day and age, that's clearly problematic, and that's why the WGA had an issue with it. And so now these writers at least get 2 attempts on a screenplay, regardless of where it comes from. It does say a writer is hired for a first draft screenplay for 200% of minimum or less, including original and non-original screenplays. So that applies to spec scripts, purchased outside of development processes. So I think this is really cool, because we didn't hear a lot about this. And you can imagine how many screenwriters were like writing something, it was just going in the trash because they weren't getting notes and getting like a second try to, improve it or change it or whatever needed to be done.
Yeah, I'm going to read more up on this one. I don't really fully understand like all scripts, like even if before they reject it or accept it, it gets a second step.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Yeah,
I think in the Hollywood of yesteryear, it was pretty normal to have at least a 3 or 4 step deal, right?
Yeah, that's typically the standard is like they wrap up multiple steps within your original deal.
Right.
So a pitch would be like, I've got a story idea, and then you would sign to like a multiple draft deal for a certain screenplay, and then you get paid at every level of that draft.
Gotcha. So this is if they've agreed to your pitch, then you get at least 2 steps.
The writer has to be hired.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Next on these points, writers working in groups will receive pension and health contributions up to the relevant cap, as though they were a single writer, rather than splitting the applicable cap.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't already like this, I guess. Essentially, what it means from the way that I read it, which I think I read it correctly, is that they would offer you pension and health benefits to a writer's room, but it was split among the writer's room, among different people. And depending on how many writers you had in there, it would divide it up even more. So this part of the deal guarantees that if you're in a writer's room, you get those benefits as if you are just an individual. You don't have to split them among other people in the room, which seems like a
as
good
if
thing.
you're an individual. Like, but that's how they were treating it. Like, oh, you're not one person. That's so messed
Yeah,
up.
like,
honestly.
healthcare. How about just the whole room? Y'all fight over it. Like, what sense does that make?
We'll get Jerry's left arm, and we'll get Tom's right arm.
Who wants teeth?
Yeah, who needs teeth? Who needs teeth? Okay, well, those are the basics of that deal. Like we said, that's not everything we could break down here. We couldn't break everything down here, but that is some of the highlights and fun and interesting stuff. And it's interesting to see how all that will continue to play out. Up next in our main stories here, we have James Gunn talking again. What? James Gunn took to Threads last week to respond to fan questions about continuity in the new DCU, and confirmed that 3 actors will continue to portray characters that they have played in the past, including Xolo Maridueña as Blue Beetle, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, and John Cena as Peacemaker. He continued to say, quote, "Yes, some actors will be playing characters they've played in other stories, and some plot points might be consistent with plot points from dozens of films, shows, and animated projects that have come from DC in the past, but nothing is canon until Creature Commandos and Superman Legacy." Does the return of these characters and their respective actors bode well for the future canon of the DCU or not?
Well, that remains to be seen, but I, for one, am pretty excited with some of these casting confirmations, and I'm a little bit of two minds on James Gunn's comments because I kind of love and hate it, because on the one hand, he's being very definitive in some regards. It's like, yes, we know that Blue Beetle's coming back. Yes, we know John Cena's Peacemaker's coming back. Yes, we know Viola Davis they're all coming back and they're going to be a part of the DCU. Nice to know that. But outside of that, everything else he's saying is like wishy-washy. It's just like, yeah, you know, some people played certain roles and they're going to continue those roles and maybe not those roles. And we'll find out when Creatures Commandos comes out. So it's like, I mean, if James Gunn is going to be opening his mouth, at least it's good news like this for me. Particularly John Cena's Peacemaker. I loved the Suicide Squad and I loved him in it, and I really loved that season of Peacemaker. I thought John Cena really got to shine in that role, and it was hilarious. So I think kind of the unexpected one here is Blue Beetle, especially given the kind of like soft return at the box office there, but it is encouraging knowing that Xolo was kind of like the standout and the highlight of everybody's experience there. The fact that he's still going to be afforded the opportunity to continue to portray this character in the DCU going forward certainly excites me.
This quote is bullshit.
Okay.
It's terrible quote from James Gunn. Yet again, keep your mouth shut. I just, come on, man. Yeah, these guys are returning, but they're not necessarily who they were before. It's like, you had your chance with the Flash movie to rewrite the universe. If you're going to pull a bunch of characters from the old universe, it's fine. Like, you know, we can have people play legacy characters and come back as roles in a different universe. It's fine. It just feels like, why is he talking right now? And also, it seems terrible for Aquaman 2 that he's talking right now. Like, he not only just basically said it's a new universe, not even the people who are coming back are guaranteed to be the same characters, much less anything else you watch that's in the old universe. And Aquaman was not mentioned. So, like, this just really throws Aquaman under the bus, I feel like. More so leaning towards the bet here that Jay might have the right idea. The Aquaman 2 might do really poorly. I hope that his quote doesn't like do terrible damage to the Aquaman 2. I hope it gets its chance to thrive if it's going to thrive. But I mostly just think it's like really terrible that he's being so wishy-washy. I wish he would just say like, it's a new universe and these guys, they're going to play the same characters, but we are starting over. So it's a new universe. Like this whole, like, it may be very similar to other characters they've played in other universes. I hate it. I hate it so much.
This is the most James Gunn quote I've heard in a long time, because there's one thing we know about him. He keeps his people. Like, when he makes a movie with people, he keeps them. Like, in the next property. That's why, like, all of his movies, the same people pop up all the time. He's extremely loyal to the talent that surrounds him in his movies. And so you do the math. It's like, well, John Cena makes sense. He made Peacemaker. Viola Davis makes sense. She was in Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. He made those. That makes sense too. And then we look at Blue Beetle. He stood on the table for that movie, so he has to carry that movie into the new DCU. Like, he pushed too hard for it to be a part of the DCU. That has to happen. He's just on record too much about that, no matter how bad it did at the box office. And so now you're looking at this thing, and it's like, well, okay, now you threw all the other characters out, and it's like, you know, and people were mad about that, but we're going to keep some, actually, but the justification has always been, well, we don't want Cavill because it's a new universe, we don't want Gal because it's a new universe, but Peacemaker, like, you know, it's like, so I don't know, it's just kind of like, it's a weird look, and I think, Matt, I'm with you. Like, I think you can approach I got no problem with bringing people. You want to bring people in to play roles that you feel like they're cut out for. I got no problem with that. But I think when you start trying to do the canon thing, and you start trying to be like, well, it's like we're going to ignore this and we're going to keep this. People they're out. Like, they're tired of that stuff. They're tired of that, like, disconjointed connection. Like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't type stuff. And it's just, people are going to be, this is why this type of stuff frustrates people, especially like DC fans specifically just get frustrated by stuff like this, because that lack of consistency just drives them absolutely crazy, because the whole point of this whole thing is canon and connectivity and characters sharing a universe together. So it's just, you know, we're not done with these quotes either, by the way. Like, these quotes are going to continue. I mean, it's just going to happen. Like, this is how he does things. He likes threads.
Right, and it doesn't have to be. If he wants this movie to not care about the canon, like I said, he could say this is a new canon, or he could do the Joker thing and just make a bunch of disparate movies that are cool and based on DC characters. And you see some through lines, you just see other movies don't seem to line up, whatever, it doesn't really matter. They're all separate movies. But DC wants to cash in on the idea of a universe, but they've not been able to cobble one together, and they've not been able to Cavill one together. And it's just they just want to, like, have their cake and eat it too, and do whatever they want, and they want to keep changing their plan, but also maintain the idea that they're a universe. And I'm just saying it, they're not. DC's not a universe.
Oh, I don't have anything to say about this.
We're serving up James Gunn on a platter, and Haley's like, pass.
I'm done with it. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, as I was putting this in the news, I was like, I hate myself for putting this story about James Gunn in here, talking about DCU again. Like, let's just get this thing started. But Superman Legacy's in 2025, so, like, these conversations are just beginning.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, we'll have more to talk about when Creatures Commandos comes out.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that one.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break and be right back. Don't go anywhere. Don't go. The show's not over. I know we haven't been taking ad breaks in the middle, but we're doing it now. Don't worry. We'll be right back. All right. We're back. And next in the news, we have Apple. I'm excited about this one, guys. I really am. Apple has released the first trailer for Argylle, a spy drama from director Matthew Vaughn. The all-star cast includes Henry Cavill, Dua Lipa, Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, John Cena, Arena DeBose, and Samuel L. Jackson. With a premise that promises to keep you guessing, the film will hit theaters on February 2nd, 2024, and will debut on Apple TV Plus at a later date. Is this Apple's biggest swing yet?
If you haven't watched this trailer, go watch it. It's really interesting. Like, it sets up the intrigue of the movie really well. Henry Cavill is looking really interesting with that flat top haircut, and it's just, the cast is stacked. I mean, you just read the list. Like, that speaks for itself. It's a stacked cast, And it seems like, just from the trailer, which is a limited look, but it seems like these actors and actresses are having a lot of fun. They're plugged into roles that they're really owning. It's got this weird blend of like spy thriller with it's got this like literary angle of characters in a book. And Bryce Dallas Howard plays this author who's writing this spy series. And then you've got the spy series sort of happening within the movie itself as well. So it seems really interesting, like from a conceptual standpoint. And I'm just really intrigued by it. I think I'm seeing ads for it everywhere. So Apple's really pushing it out there. They're really pushing that like Henry Cavill Dua Lipa dance scene. Like I feel like I see that every time I scroll like 3 scrolls, I like see it again. So but it looks really interesting. I'm definitely intrigued.
It's real quirky and it's bringing in a lot of funny vibes. So like I watch it and I get Knives Out and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Miami Vice. Like it's super just drawing on all these very random and disparate genres, but bringing them together. And I think that's why it looks fun. And it's making me think like this is Apple taking a really big swing to try to, I think, really launch their streaming service up another tier, because more and more people are becoming aware of all of the media that they're putting out and really enjoying a lot of it. And this is just kind of like, you like that? We've got this movie coming out with this ridiculous cast that we think you're going to like too. It also has kind of Last Night in Soho vibes. It's just crazy. But that's Matthew Vaughn, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I love Matthew Vaughn, and his directing style is really interesting. And the Kingsman movies are so like over the top action spy thriller, which like this is, but it looks like that mixed with adaptation. Like it's that weird like thing of like part of the story is in reality and part of it's not, and sort of what is the line between reality and fiction. And it just looks like it's just really, really cool and well done. And I love the idea of this like over the top action sequences and dance sequences like they have in the Kingsman and movies like that Matthew Vaughn's so good at. I love the idea of them being in the fictional world. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of gives them license to do even more ridiculous stuff because that's the fiction of it. And then, but also grounding it in this real world with Sam Rockwell. Like Sam Rockwell is the GOAT, and I love him so much. And if he is any indication, I'm guessing he will have a mirrored dance scene that mirrors what happens in that Cavill scene. I'm guessing that the real world dance scene will be Sam Rockwell and maybe Bryce Dallas Howard. And it will be awkward and it will be fun. I'm excited. It looks really, really great.
Yeah, there was a movie that came out last year called The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Daniel Radcliffe and Channing Tatum. And conceptually, I was immediately like put in mind of that movie when seeing this trailer. And I guess my hope is that that Henry Cavill is a main character, and his character of Argyle, like we get to see him throughout this movie, and it's not just kind of like a throwaway bit at the beginning and they pull the rug out from under us. It's like, oh, we set up this world of Argyle, but you're going to spend the whole time with the author and Sam Rockwell. But I'm with you 100%, Matt. Sam Rockwell, excellent character actor, one of my favorite character actors, but Hollywood, give him more leading roles. He deserves it. He's so capable of it. Outside of that, yeah, I kind of agree with everything that's been brought up. I really do like Matthew Vaughn as a director. He has this style of shooting action that's really like snappy and kind of punchy that I think really excites me for the level of action that we're going to get here. And Dua Lipa, she's been, making the transition to films. She showed up in this summer's blockbuster Barbie, and she looks like a great femme fatale. And
with John Cena.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, they had a scene together. Yeah. I kind of hope that she is included on the soundtrack for this one, because every time she puts out a new jam, like it's so catchy. She's got that new age disco thing going so well.
I really like one of the jokes, and that it isn't really focused on in the trailer, I feel like, but I feel like it's going to definitely be part of the movie, which is these are the real versions of the characters you're writing, and they're all like just not, they're intentionally making them kind of less attractive, which I think is very funny. Sure. It's like, because in the spy genre, everyone's so beautiful, and they don't even play this joke in the trailer, but they kind of ruin the joke. It shows her meeting Samuel L. Jackson's character, and he has this hat on, and he looks like cool Samuel L. Jackson, but later you see him without the hat on, and he has this weird sprigs of hair that are clearly meant to like not look good, and it's just kind of funny. At some point you're gonna be like, yeah, I'm Samuel L. Jackson, I'm the cool MFer, and then he takes off the hat, and it's like, ooh, Yikes. But then Sam Rockwell starts with that humongous beard in the same vein. Just like they just like are not the clean-cut Henry Cavill spy, you know?
Mm. I will say this movie is coming out in February, which seems to be kind of a favored spot for Matthew Vaughn. He's put out a few movies in February, but they have got to work on the CGI for the cat during that time. I was getting really taken out by that cat CGI.
It's not great.
Oh, dude, this movie's going to kill because it's going to get male and female audiences excited because I think the angle of the movie and the silliness of it and the over-the-top nature, like I think it's really going to get both audiences, and it's going to be a perfect Valentine's Day movie. It'll get a little bit of buzz the first 2 weekends, and then Valentine's Day it's going to kill.
Mm-hmm.
All right, up next, the trailer for Walt Disney Animation's upcoming movie, Wish. You have to say it like that. That's how it's said in the trailer. Wish. Just kidding. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Wish became the studio's biggest trailer since the release of promotional spots for Frozen 2 in 2019. The spot earned 66.5 million views across online platforms, according to the company. It surpassed the teaser trailer, which was released in April, by almost 20 million views and has quickly become the most viewed Disney trailer on TikTok to date. Wish will debut in theaters on November 22nd and is turning into a spotlight for Disney's centennial celebration of the company. The entertainment giant has been under a bit of fire recently. Does Wish have what it takes to douse the flames?
I think Wish looks fantastic. I think that it evokes all of the classic Disney animated movie elements that we all grew up with, that we love. And it's also tagging on the success of Frozen, which another generation of people love, that they were small when those movies came out. And those were kind of groundbreaking movies at the time for Disney, and they really captured audiences. And it's interesting that this trailer is doing so well after Frozen 2's trailer because the same writer is on, I believe it's the same writer. Yeah, Jennifer Lee on both of those films. And so it's just, I think it's magical. I remember when the teaser came out and I sent it to Zuhair, Scotty's co-host. I don't remember if I sent it to you, Scotty, but I was like, you guys should cover this. Like, this looks like really special to me. And if you don't know, it is Disney's 100th anniversary this year. And so they tout this as a story 100 years in the making, and I think that that's just a nod to Disney Centennial. But it's kind of bringing all of our Disney princess movies and animated movies and the specialness of those together to connect it to Argyle. It stars Ariana DeBose, who's going to be in that movie as well. She's a Broadway actress. She's on TV. She was in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. We have Chris Pine. She won an Oscar. She's got a beautiful voice. I really love her. Chris Pine is the king. We've got Alan Tudyk, because you can't make an animated movie without Alan Tudyk. Victor Garber, who's an actor that I really love, is going to be. So it's got Evan Peters, got a great cast. And I think that it's going to be just something really unique and new that Disney needed. And I do think this will do really well in the theaters.
I'll start by addressing the Disney centennial of it all. And I have to say, I'm kind of impressed by Disney's restraint, especially compared to AMC. They've been doing their 100 years of AMC for like the last 3 years. That I'm so sick and tired of seeing that Nicole Kidman intro. We come here for magic. Yeah, I get it. It's been 3 years. Give it a rest. But anyway, no, I'm right on board with you, Haley. I really enjoyed this trailer. The art style was definitely the thing that stuck out to me. I really do feel like it's all throwback to the classic age of like golden age of animation for Disney, as well as like hearkening to this like new 3D rendered style. And the thing that really stuck out to me about it is it really feels like it's like there's a texture to the animation. Like it feels like it's on like a canvas or like a mosaic or like a tapestry. So like you really get to see this texture as like these 3D characters kind of float across it. Apart from that, I'm super excited for Alan Tudyk, his little character, the goat Valentino, because like as soon as that character spoke, I was like, oh, who's doing that voice? I recognize that voice, and knee-jerk reaction was Patrick Stewart, but then I was like, no, it's Alan Tudyk, and he's doing the exact same voice he uses for Clayface on the Harley Quinn show. So yeah, it looks really good. Chris Pine, I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't had the opportunity to voice a Disney character yet, but this character of Magnifico, I have kind of high hopes that he's going to not be too mustache twirly. It seems like he has some complications and some motivations there that I think will be explored and make him that much more satisfying of a villain. But with the name Magnifico, it does make me think of Fairly Odd Parents. Shout out to my 90s kid, Nicktoon kids. There was a character on that show called Magnifico Wandifico Magnifico. So if I was Butch Hartman, I might start to contact Disney about some copyright infringement, potentially.
Yeah, Disney needs a few like this. They're starting to get to the point where they're hitting the 2s and 3s, like Frozen 3 is in the pipeline, and it'll do well, of course. I mean, it's got a huge fan base. But you're hitting that. You're also seeing the remakes happen, and they're to varying levels of degrees of success. And to get a new IP that people can buy into, especially these like Disney princess IPs, when they hit really hard. And they create fan bases that last for over a decade, and they continue to just draw people into more properties within Disney. They get sequels, they get albums, they get all these things going. The theme parks start to profit from it. So they need some stuff like this if they're going to pull themselves. They're in kind of a hole right now from a financial standpoint. So, but yeah, I agree with you guys. I think this trailer, it definitely captures the magic that I think people look for when they watch a film like this. And I'm in on that animation style. Like you guys said, I think it's really interesting. It's unique, and it sells the film as its own unique thing, which I think is exciting.
Yeah. And you guys all mentioned that it's sort of like its own thing, and it has that line about 100 years in the making. What I found interesting, the moment I saw the trailer and they're zooming down towards the castle, I was like, that looks like the style of castle from Disney World. You know, like it looks very similar in style, and it's not necessarily. I'm not a Disney fanboy enough to know if it's exactly the same.
Cinderella's castle, I think, is what it's supposed to be, right?
Yes, that's right. And so it just looks very similar in style. And then as the trailer went on, there's also a moment where it happens very fast, but you see a group of animals that are animated almost exactly like the Bambi group of animals. And then a little bit later in the trailer, she wishes upon a star, and that seems to be the main thrust of the movie, is that she has the power to wish on a star. So and there's some sort of little star character. It just feels like they're trying to make Disney the movie. Like they're really going for like grabbing these sort of disparate elements from around Disney's history and sort of coalescing them into a movie. And I just think that's kind of neat. It's kind of fun. And if they do it right, it could be a really cheesy thing to do if they overdo it or if they do too many things. But like, yeah, I think they've seems like they've stricken a balance of like really trying to make a good individual plot in itself. And also I noticed there's a little bit of a social commentary already in the trailer about these wishes that Magnifico can give and how he gets to decide whether people's wishes, he's the one with power, and so he gets to decide whether people's wishes are good for the overall community or whatever he says.
For the greater good.
For the greater good, exactly. The kingdom, yeah. So he gets to decide as the powerful one whose wishes matter and whose wishes are good for everyone and whose wishes he gets to ignore. And that clearly they're going to try for something powerful there with a real social commentary, which honestly Disney doesn't always do. Disney sort of steers clear of a lot of that, like sort of political social commentary thing, really more so lately, but like I'm here for it.
I think that's where Jennifer Lee comes in. She took the Frozen stories and she twisted the Snow Queen that they're based on, and she made them about mental health, and that was something that Disney absolutely had not done before. And those movies are so popular, whether you hate them or whatever, you know, they are extremely popular with a population of people. And so I think she's a great breath of fresh air to write this movie as well. She's married to who's the actor that plays Doc Ock in the Spider-Man movies?
Alfred Molina.
She's married to Alfred Molina. Fun fact, I watch a lot of behind the scenes things on Disney.
I love it. Next we got up is our Spotify poll for this week. We asked, how do you feel about baths? How does our audience, our very specific audience, how do the pandas feel about baths? I love it. I love it, and I love how very divided you are about baths. Because we have 12% of you say they are disgusting. 36% of you say they are only for children and dogs.
I voted for that one.
I did too. That was I contributed.
49% of you, the winner says perfect way to relax. I'm with you guys. And then 1%, which I did the math, breaks down to one person, says it's how they clean their body. No judgment. No judgment. You know what's best for you.
At least you're cleaning your body. We love it.
Like, what gives, guys? Like, come on now. Like, this is just a thing that I do. Why's it got to be a problem?
That's one of those children that listens.
It was a dog, actually.
Yeah. It was an AI dog. The Saw Patrol dog.
Oh, the Saw Patrol. Did you guys see there was an article that was talking about Saw Patrol that somebody posted on the Stranded Panda chat today?
No.
Mm-mm.
So there was an article from some other source that said, like, Saw Patrol, and it had a picture of one of the patrol dogs with the saw thing, and it... Like straight up it was an article about Saw Patrol and how it did well, but it's going to face struggles this week against some other movie.
Hey, we were talking about that like 2 months ago.
We definitely made that up
on
the spot.
Here.
I found it. Dextero is the website. I've never heard of that.
I haven't
Saw
either.
Patrol set for box office fight against the creator. And they have
that
this
crazy?
very menacing picture of a Paw Patrol puppy.
Yeah,
It's amazing. You totally ripped us off, Dextero. We see
Dextero, right in.
Cut the check, baby.
Tell us if you know us. That's really
Those
funny.
residuals, though.
We want numbers over here.
I just love that the headline is just Saw Patrol like it's a thing. Like, I don't know if it's a thing anywhere but this show and that article, and I just love that they wrote the article and was like,
Goog.
Saw Patrol. It's great.
Saw Patrol, as coined by
The
Multiverse
Guardian
News.
used Saw Patrol. Know Your Meme, Saw Patrol. Is that the one you made? I don't know. Who's winning the Saw Patrol box office? Vulture. Oh my gosh.
Vulture used it?
Wait.
Wow.
Reddit has a thread. Regal, Loki trying to make Saw Patrol a thing. Ha ha ha. Okay, a Gen Zer wrote that, first of all. A Gen Zer wrote that. Those videos are making it into my algorithm and it's warping my brain.
Oh my gosh. I love that
Like
Saw
somebody
Patrol
sticking up a
happened.
subway and the person's like, not you in your thief era, boo. And I'm like, what am I watching right now? I'll send it to you guys. It can be in your algorithm too.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, Haley.
Oh,
but I
you'll
love it.
find out.
Please send it. Please send it. I'll put it in the show notes to ruin everyone's algorithm.
I do love a good unhinged poll, though, I gotta say. Like, a lot of times we're like, hey, which cast do you think's good for Fantastic Four? And then sometimes it's like, y'all like bats? It's you. What do you come to this show for? Come on, if you stuck with us this long, like, just you're here for a reason. I mean,
our Spotify poll has slowly become our silliest segment, but it is worth noting that 73 people responded with their opinions about baths.
I love it.
2 of them were me and Jay, though.
Yeah. You gotta subtract 2.
My whole point, though, is I love how divided down the middle it is, because they're disgusting and then they're only for children and dogs is half. And then perfect way to relax, and it's the only way I clean my body is half. Like 50% is positive and 50% is very negative. Like, I love that
Baths
it just like
are very polarizing.
very polarizing.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting stuff here.
It is. This could be the next land. If this hits the internet and it's the next, like, which way do you put the toilet paper roll, then we know that somebody out there in the journalists are listening to us.
Well, I think Saw Patrol is absolutely
We did that. Like, we did it.
That's absolutely from us.
We definitely made it up on the spot, but it's just funny that it's out there. And it was like 2 or 3 months ago. It's crazy. Well, we're going to get to the lightning round. And so do not go away. Do not go. We will be right back with the lightning round. Some cool stuff in there after this. All right. Welcome back to Multiverse News. Let's hit this lightning round. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Always.
Audience, are you ready? Okay. Some people decided to mock you, basically. Audience, they mocked you, is what the hosts did. But no, you guys know what the lightning round is. I'm going to say a story, and only one person gets to respond to each story. One. And you do that. You claim a story by buzzing in, by saying your name, and then if you like, you have one rebuttal to a response throughout the entire lightning round. So here we go. Netflix has released first looks at several of its upcoming animated projects, including a teaser for Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft, which will star Haley Atwell as Lara Croft, a brief teaser for the upcoming Devil May Cry anime adaptation, and a look at Logan and Blade Runner 2049 co-writer Michael Green's new adult animated series, Blue Eye Samurai.
Scotty. So Netflix is not normally one of my streaming services that I include in my rotation, but given the number of animated properties that are coming out and the quality that they seem to be, I might have to be persuaded to indulge again, at least for a little while. I will say in terms of like the animation style, the Devil May Cry one was the one that kind of caught my eye the most, which is interesting because I think it's the most kind of traditional and straightforward in terms of it just kind of being a modern take on the classic anime style. Blue-Eyed Samurai, that one definitely gets my attention as well, just with the talent involved with the writer of Blade Runner 2049, one of my favorite films of all time. But I did find a weird disconnect with that one. Like the animation style is absolutely beautiful, but I felt like it didn't fit the action very well. So, judgment still reserved. I'll wait to see what the final product looks like, but it definitely seems interesting in concept alone. And Lara Croft, Haley Atwell seems like a perfect Lara Croft, and I love Tomb Raider, so bring it on.
Absolutely. Irish-English veteran screen and stage actor Michael Gambon died September 28th at the age of 82. Though many will certainly recognize Gambon for his lauded portrayal of Albus Dumbledore in the Harry Potter movies after replacing the late Richard Harris during his 60-year career, Gambon has received 3 Olivier Awards, 2 SAG Awards, and 4 BAFTA Awards. He was knighted in 1999 for his services to drama.
Haley, I love Michael Gambon from so many other things, including Gosford Park, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And for Jay, he was a voice in Paddington. So, we have to throw that out there. I know a lot of our audience knows him from Harry Potter, but things like The Hollow Crown and just a lot of Fantastic Mr. Fox, like Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Like, he just an incredible resume, and it's really sad that he's gone.
Absolutely. On Friday, Netflix announced that it has mailed its last DVD. The first DVD it shipped in 1998 was a copy of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. The final envelope contained a DVD copy of the 2010 film True Grit, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen.
Jay, I love this just as like an idea, a relic of the past. It reminds me of the last blockbuster that exists, and that idea of the nostalgia of renting movies and getting movies in the mail, which was a whole era that is just lost. And so for this to be the way it ends, True Grit, I think it's just a fitting and kind of cool end to a really interesting era that I think all of us were defined by in some way of in the way that we grew to love movies. I know all of us are movie lovers, and we existed in that era where we had to rent them. We had to go rent them from a store, or we had to order them from the mail. So I think it's just I often don't get too nostalgic for the past, but I think it's important to pause on this one and just reflect back on the journey you came on to become a film lover here.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give a little rebuttal to that. I just think it's so cool to hear that this was still going on, and that it has this weird place in my brain of when that started being a thing and how cool it was. A few bucks a month and you could just get as many DVDs as you can send back. They'll just keep sending them to you. And I'm like, that's so cool. I used to get all these I remember I did all of Stargate this way. I did all of Stargate through 10 seasons of that show, just sending a DVD back at a time. And I think I did Buffy at some point this way too. So yeah, it's just good times. Lots of good memories of those little DVD envelopes. With a deal in place with the Writers Guild, studios have begun taking aim at setting writers for their open assignments. Sources tell Deadline that Marvel Studios will start setting writers' meetings later this fall for pitches on its anticipated X-Men movie. Insiders add there is no rush to fill the job since the film does not have a release date yet, and it's more than likely that a writer decision will be made at the beginning of 2024. Marvel declined to comment. Because they're not James Gunn. Yes, Haley.
I think that I will be correct about it taking at least 10 years for us to get an X-Men movie. That's all.
Yep. It's looking like it.
People said I was crazy, and I was like, that's a huge franchise to tackle. Like, they got to do it right.
It's kind of Kevin Feige's baby a little bit, too. I guess it's my rebuttal.
No doubt.
It's kind of Kevin Feige's baby. I mean, he was on board with all of those X-Men movies. Like, that's where he got his start in Hollywood. That's where it all happened for him. So he's a big X-Men guy. We already kind of know that a lot of those characters are coming around in Deadpool 3, and who knows what happens to them in that movie. But eventually, you're going to have to bring in these new characters at some point. So, I mean, Deadpool 3 is still a year away, and this writer is just talking about coming in and pitching. Like, I mean, that seems like an accurate prediction to me. It's still a while off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get those very often.
Paw Patrol: The Mighty movie took the #1 spot at the American domestic box office this weekend with a solid $23 million opening, beating out Saw X, which took $18 million. The Creator, which hauled in $14 million, and Dumb Money, which flopped at $3.5 million.
Scotty, I don't want to take anything away from Paw Patrol, but I do want to come out as kind of a defender to Dumb Money. The way it just suggests that it flopped, and like $3.5 million on its wide release is not great. It's pretty abysmal, but it is worth mentioning that this movie has had a slow rollout to wide release. So I know I saw it a good 3 weeks ago, and I do think it was available in some like larger markets, and the people that were really, itching to see that one, they already went out and saw it, and they might have gone to see one of these other films. But I do look at The Creator as well, and that was one that we had some high hopes for, especially it being an original IP, a return for Gareth Edwards, who hasn't directed anything since 2016's Rogue One, and the fact that it was made on an $80 million budget, was hoping to see a nice return on that and prove to Hollywood that we do want to see new interesting concepts in the world of sci-fi. So maybe this will be one where the word of mouth helps support it over the coming weeks, as there's not as much content coming out. But kudos to Paw Patrol, and I think the Saw franchise has at least guaranteed another sequel before too long.
Yeah, this is a tiny butt, but you mentioned $80 million budget for The Creator. Saw X, $13 million budget. Paw Patrol, $30 million budget.
Woo!
So, it's just one of those things like
that animation, though.
Yeah, and Paw Patrol will continue to grow, by the way. Like, I'm a parent, and any parent listening to this is like, well, yeah, of course it is, because every kid is completely obsessed
Jay,
with mindlessly
are you going to do it for Multiverse reviews?
I will see it. I have to see it because I have 3 kids and they all want to see it. So I will see it. If anybody wants that review, you just let me know. I'll serve it up on a platter by myself in front of a mic. But
I want it.
Yeah, I want it too.
That will continue to climb. It just, because you know how families are. Like, they don't care about opening weekend. They'll go 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road and just see it whenever. So that I wouldn't be surprised if that just kind of keeps chipping away. Like, we just keep talking about it. It's like, oh, another 20, another 20, another 20, and it just kind of keeps rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the subject of reviews and The Creator, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Multiverse Reviews did put out our first review earlier this week with Matthew Carroll and myself reviewing The Creator. So go check that out on the feed.
Yeah. Right before this episode in the feed, there should be a review of The Creator, and it was a great time. Really, really great time. We had mixed feelings about it, but not to spoil too much, but check it out.
Also,
we do a non-spoiler section at the beginning.
That's what I was going to say, because I listened to the non-spoiler because I haven't seen it yet. So if you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to see this, go listen to that first part first, and then you won't get anything spoiled.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be doing that on all of our future Multiverse Reviews episodes that we'll be dropping when something seems relevant to what we do here at Multiverse News. SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers met Monday for the first contract talks since July 14th. Hopefully a sign of some movement towards the end of the actor strike.
Haley? Yeah.
Woo!
Woo!
Yeah, movement.
Yay!
this gives a nice springboard, where we got some stuff going now. That's good. It's good news.
It's moving.
You can do it.
We have an entertainment news show, and TV and movies can finally start being made again. This feels good. Among other discourse about November's MCU entry, The Marvels, AMC Theaters released the movie's runtime late last week at 1 hour and 45 minutes. The Marvels will be the shortest movie to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This runtime joins Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder as recent MCU entries under or right at 2 hours. Matt, I'll talk about this one. I really don't mind if it's a little shorter. It's weird that they're making things shorter and shorter, and we've had a lot of discourse about that with the TV series, how some episodes, the shows seem to get shorter and shorter as the series go on. But I don't mind if a movie is short as long as it's good. And maybe this seems like the kind of tone that could fit in an under 2 hour movie. I don't mind movies being under 2 hours at all. But I hope it doesn't bode towards a big shift away from them being willing to give resources to the MCU to make those longer movies when they want to or need to for the story. I think they've had some long ones not do well, and so I think they're trying to see if they can get a tighter package going, which could be great.
Tiny bit.
Scotty with a rebuttal. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I stand by that it might suffer the same problem as Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and that it's going to rely heavily on things that have come before, and some people will not have seen them.
That's a good call.
Yeah, I'll chime in with a quick rebuttal as well. And I wasn't here on a previous week where we talked about the speculation that it might be like an hour and 30. So to hear that it's actually an hour and 45 certainly sounds better than an hour 30. And do I think that, Marvel could make a completely compelling and movie that's functional and works with an hour and 45 minute runtime? Sure. I'd never go into movies, demanding a certain amount of runtime. It's just, do they tell the story that they wanted to tell, and do they do it effectively, and do they make me feel something? So in that sense, some of the comparisons that are being made here, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I love that movie, but that is one of those movies where it felt kind of rushed, and I think it really would have benefited from just an additional 15 minutes. So to hear that we're not, instead of getting that 15-minute padding, we're losing that 15 minutes does concern me slightly, just because we are focusing on 3 title characters here. I think about previous superhero movies that have been around an hour and 45 minutes, and the first one that comes to mind is the original Deadpool, which an hour and 45 minutes worked perfectly for that, but it was only focusing on the one title character. This one we have Brie Larson returning as Carol Danvers. We've got Monica Rambeau, and we've got Kamala Khan to both introduce those characters to people that didn't watch the Disney Plus series, plus make them have a compelling character journey that we care about. It's a tall order.
It's a good point. I hadn't really considered that it's such a short one, and it's introducing 2 characters that most audience won't know. And Carol Danvers has just not. It feels like a long time since the first Captain Marvel. It feels like it's been a long time. I know she's appeared in a couple others, but she has not been a central character in another movie since then, and it just feels like it's been a while. So that is a little worrying that audiences just won't be able to catch on to these characters like they should. But the movie looks so much fun. Next, Only Murders in the Building has been renewed for a 4th season by Hulu.
Haley? Yay! I love Only Murders, so this is awesome.
Sweet.
Also, there was a spin-off show that Kaylee Cuoco was going to do that was kind of this. I forget which streaming service. And I was like, It was literally we're solving murders and we have a podcast. And I was like, gee, I wonder where they got that idea from.
Oh, you mean a rip-off show? Not a spin-off?
Yeah, not spin-off.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
Gotcha.
Kaylee.
No, you're fine. I was like, spin-off? That's weird. I didn't hear anything about that. That's
I'm
funny.
tired. We've been on here a long time.
Last thing in the lightning round here. The first 3 episodes of Amazon's The Boys spinoff Gen V are now available to stream on Prime Video, with the remainder of the 8-episode season premiering on Fridays through November 3rd. Matt? I saw the first episode. Haven't seen all 3 yet. And it was... gave this a lot of shit when we saw the trailers. I thought it looked like CW. I still don't think it's reached the point of The Boys for me, but again, I've only seen the first episode. But it's way better than I expected. So far, I'm really, really enjoying the characters, the takes, and it is doing something a little different than The Boys, but very much in the same vein. So I'm in, and I'm definitely going to continue watching it. And we may even cover it on Panavision. We intended to, but this season's just been hard for everybody. So with so much going on.
Yeah, I'll do a response here real quickly and just say, like, I've enjoyed all the seasons of The Boys so far. I've enjoyed all the Boys content, even like the little animated spinoff they did with Justin Roiland there. But I've been surprised by the lack of fanfare for this one. Like, I don't feel like it's really in the zeitgeist. I don't feel like there's been very much promotion about it now that the 3 episodes are available. I don't really feel like people are talking about it or promoting their reviews or anything like that. So I do want to check these episodes out and check the season out, but I don't know. It's a little concerning. I hope The Boys and Amazon isn't losing steam, especially with, Invincible Season 2 around the corner.
Yeah. It does feel very under-promoted. I will absolutely agree with that. I didn't really even know it was happening until I turned on Amazon and it was like, had already been out for 3 days. And I was like, oh, crap. I didn't even hear.
Right.
All right. Well, that is all of our news. So let's move on and tell everybody where we can find you guys online. J. Scotty St. Clair, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can find me over on Animation Deliberation. That's the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And every week it's myself and my co-host Suhair Ali covering a piece of animated content, be it traditional animation, anime, or one of these, animated releases that have been doing so well in the theaters. So if any of that tickles your fancy, join us over on Animation Deliberation, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah. And Haley Hobbs, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Source Pages. We do character deep dives and source material background for geeky TV shows and movies. We just dropped our episode for Loki Season 2. We covered the trials of Loki with our friend Ryan Doze, who's been on this show, who hosts Across the Bifrost, the Mighty Thor podcast.
Sweet. And Jay Sisson, where can the people get more Jay Sisson?
Well, if you want more Jay Sisson, you can come join me at Commute the Podcast, a weekly educational show that covers 3 interesting topics in 20 minutes. Just a nice, tight package on your way to work. Learn something interesting that you can talk about with people in your life.
Sweet. And I am on the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, and the reason I mentioned it is because Loki Season 2 is starting this week, like Haley mentioned, and we are really pumped about it. All 3 of the hosts, me, Jeff, and Ashley will all be on every episode is the plan, and we are going to be able to cover it when it drops, watch it, cover it live with everyone in prime time. So we're going to be going live on, I think, 9 o'clock Central or so. Yeah, I'm really pumped to do that with the audience and be able to watch and respond in real time. We haven't been able to do that, all 3 of us, I think, ever on any show. So really pumped about that. And we will be back very soon with more Multiverse news. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.